Welcome, everyone. I'm Marion Dalton, and it's awesome to have you join us with another conversation with difference makers, because that's what life is all about, truly making a difference, whether it's with your family, in your community, in your business, ministry. It's important to always be a true difference maker. And the guys I'm sitting with today are really special to me because these are long-term relationships and friends, some of my closest friends in the world. Yeah. Chuck Balsamo, who's a pretty cool guy, as you can see, and he's got the lumberjack look today, and I like that because he's that way. But we've been friends since 1991, almost 30 years, and have been doing life together. And Mark, we've been friends, and not only that, he's been on staff with our ministry for 19 years, just celebrated 19 years, but we've been friends for over 20 years. Yeah. And I just couldn't think of a better couple dudes to get with that are truly difference makers as we began to talk about long-term relationships and legacy and life, family, business, and so on. So, hey, Mark, what do you think, man?
Yeah, so when Chuck was coming into town, are we allowed to say that your son just got married?
Yeah, yes.
And so Chuck
just got a daughter. I added a daughter, Gabby, to my family.
Came in for the wedding. He preached in church yesterday, and we knew we were going to do this podcast, but it just seemed more appropriate than anything to talk about the power of these long-term relationships. And Chuck even said something on Sunday that kind of nailed it for the context of this conversation, because we live in a cancel culture like people, they're going to cancel so quick, so easily, whether that's business or relationships or some membership they have. And we just have this mindset of like, if I don't like it, I'm going to cancel it. And so, I mean, there's been once or twice where we didn't get along.
Really? And y'all didn't tell me.
Probably more for me.
They didn't tell me. No, I'm kidding. He's right.
Probably more for me and Pastor Marion, because like literally we worked hand in hand for 20 years. But we've never canceled.
Right.
I mean, we might have raised our voices a few times.
Thought about it.
And yes.
And then his wife, Katie, who is really amazing, he married way up. She would talk him off the ledge.
Yeah.
And,
So 30 years. So you already kind of laid context for that. So Chuck, kind of tell them your perspective on the relationships that we have here. And Chuck and I, we go back 15 years. No, actually, we did the math here. It was more like 18 years.
18 years.
Very beginning of the ministry. And Pastor Marion introduced us. So it's pretty crazy.
Maybe Chuck share a little bit about what he does so they get a kind of perspective for those that don't know him.
Yeah, for sure. So I am Chuck Balsamo. Glad to be here. And definitely this is a fun topic because we're talking about you're looking at three of the greatest friend bonds that you'll see anywhere. And, I think we can operate from unconscious competence today, and we can just flow out and talk about that because it is important. You hate to make it long into life and not have friendships that go deeper than 5 years. Yeah. And unfortunately, we live in a world right now where people are just canceling, and nothing goes deep. And you have to work through some things to have some deep relationships. I would say, to tell you a little bit about what I do, it fits into the topic. I am a relationship builder, and I think
without a doubt,
and just like you guys are, and one thing my son taught me, is just the power of relationships. I mean, skill set matters, resume matters, experience matters, all those things. But what I think what matters more than most people think when it comes to getting really high up in life, it's the relationships.
Yeah.
And you will not go high in life if you're not building deep relationships with the right people, And I've been a relationship builder for a lot of years, so that's kept me doing things like I've done a lot of things with business, real estate sales for a lot of years, and then coaching real estate agents and coaching business people in general, and just kept raising the bar on the types of people that I was working with as my skill set was being developed. And now I work with clients up to 150 million a year, and have built quite a few businesses over the years. So I don't know. People use the word serial entrepreneur. I don't know if I'm serial, but at least I'm beyond couple.
Yeah.
And just recently launched a company, became partner with another company. And I'm a pastor. So, but all of that has to do with relationships. I would not be where I am in any one of those ventures if it weren't for key relationships that were built. So it's a great topic.
Do you think being a relationship builder enables you, we know it enables you to be a more effective entrepreneur, but it also, because I'm similar to you, coaching, pastoring, running multiple businesses, as well as Mark, it enables us to quickly move toward a project, a launch, or something like that, because we have a lot of different relationships from different arenas to pull in, and understanding how does that work with you being an entrepreneur, especially relationships that are longer term, to integrate into your life and to give you the ability to be a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah, I mean, it takes well, you know, what do we get from friendships? I mean, we get affirmation. God, man, you know, nobody wants to admit it. I mean, I'm 49 right now.
Oh, and wow, you're
yeah.
Old, man.
I would hate to admit how bad I still need affirmation in life.
Yeah.
And I think you talk about deep relationships and what that does. I mean, I remember when I first met you, well, not when I first met you, but when our relationship was really established, you made a move to invest in me and our friendship we were driving through town from St. Louis. We were doing a big series of meetings out there. We were driving through, and you had given me your cell phone number years ago, which, by the way, I've learned over the years not to abuse that when somebody gives you their cell phone. That relationship might not be ready right now. Some people in insecurity, they push and they overuse that opportunity. And I think you have to know where you're at and your pace in life. And you have to let faster runners go ahead of you for a little while, and you build those layers. But friendship should be natural, you know, at different stages of life. But I was coming through Lexington and I called you guys, and I was in a low moment of life. With mentors and some things I'd gone through in my life. And I'm a strong guy. I was muscling through, you know, it's not like I needed something or I didn't know I needed it. Yeah. And I sent you guys a text, said, hey, we're just coming through town. And you said, you called me and said, hey, why don't we take you guys out to eat? You took us to our first Japanese steakhouse.
Oh, yeah. And
we were blown away. We were just little country guys, man. You guys are in Lexington, Kentucky, this white collar city with your cool chefs and food experiences. And then you invite us back to the house afterwards. And we sat there for hours, and you just affirmed our lives and who we were. And that was the beginning of a relationship. You know, in the beginning of that relationship, you had a lot more to offer me. And I had very little to offer you. There was a disproportionate investment that you made in my life during that time. And I think that's something that's important in relationships, that there is give and take, but there are times you're going to take a risk. And you took a huge risk and invested. And I would hope that over the years that paid off, not just with our friendship, but I bet you have lots of, you know, lots of times that you can look and be, you know, I disproportionately invested in this, and now look at how this is paying off in my life, you know? Yeah.
You know, looking at it from that point of view with both of you guys, you know, I'm 10 years your elder, so I'm 58. Mark's what, 40?
15. You're 15 years older.
You. So in the early stages, of course, you know, investing a lot in you guys. But man,
my goodness, I was 23 years old when you hired me.
He'd never had a job.
Extremely disproportionate.
Part-time at FedEx, you know, and I'll bring him into, but he was, you know, going to college, you know, just got his degree and was going into ministry. But you know, it's so cool, you know, going through those times and those ups and downs, but man, how it's paid off for me now. I mean, that's the power of long-term relationships. Now, there's been many more relationships that I poured into that didn't bring a return. And some of them brought pain and suffering. And others just brought, if you were looking for affirmation, forget it. I never go into those kind of relationships unless I'm intentional. And I always go to those kinds of relationships looking at, I'm not going to expect anything in return. It's kind of like loaning money to a friend, give it to them, right? And I do that the same thing with my relational time. And as you get older, you get more picky, but because, you know, you don't want to have a lot of time to waste. So that's something that's really came back to me in a big way with just, you guys are two of the greatest illustrations. And not only that, great friends and loyals. We have others like Richard Holmes and others, Pastor Holmes and stuff. So Mark, what about you? How's that?
Well, I mean, it's funny. So you kind of pinpoint affirmation. And for me, Chuck's been a massive piece of that. So when I started my business 4 years ago, Chuck became a business coach to me. And, you know, go back 18 years, but now it was like this different relationship. And now like that weekly connection that we have of just pouring in. So when we get face to face like this, it's like gravy.
Yeah.
And so Chuck's been that to me. And over the last several years, it just catapulted me. And same thing, disproportionate investment. And now I get to give back to him some. And with you, oh my, like seriously, like thanks for not firing me and thanks for throwing me out. Like, I mean, I was 23. I thought I knew stuff. And to go through 2 decades of serving alongside each other. Yeah. And now, like, I'm sitting at your son's wedding yesterday.
He actually did the wedding with me. That's associated with our relationship. Yeah. And with my family and his family, the way we are with each other's kids. And
and so officiating the wedding, I've been able to, I've watched your son grow up, both of them, but
and you coach him.
Yeah. And now I coach your son. I coach his wife.
Yeah.
And well, it's his wife now. I got to get used to saying that.
Gabby.
And so like being able to give back and just like to see how things develop. And I'm sitting at that wedding. I'm just looking around so much of what you've created through the church and relationships and depths. And so many of those relationships I have, you introduced me to. And I'm overwhelmed with gratitude because all these things have happened because of our relationship. Because I wouldn't have met Chuck if it wasn't for our relationship. Wow. And if I wouldn't have, like, seriously, I wanted to cancel multiple times. My wife's like, no, you're not allowed to. And there was times when you did too.
Yeah.
When I came, there was one time when I came to you and I was like, I think I'm out. I'm abbreviating. But that's the way I was feeling. And you and Pastor Steph sitting in the office looked at me and said, we trust you to hear God. And we know you hear the voice of God. We don't feel that. We don't sense that from the Spirit of God.
Can you imagine if you had walked away?
And there was a call that I was going to, I told them I got this call. I'm going to return the call about another opportunity. And they said that to me. I prayed about it, talked with Katie and a couple others, and I never returned that call. Never did. And that was 18 years ago.
That's such a great point because, you think about today, this world we live in is very tense. Lots of friendships have ended in 2020.
Yeah.
I would say more friendships ended in 2020 than any time in maybe world history, right? Millions and millions of friendships have been canceled, have been just ended. And I understand wanting to walk with people who share our exact beliefs. But I think it's very dangerous to culture to be so fast to end relationships, because I think you've got to move a lot of relationships forward to end up with a few gems.
Yeah, you do.
You really do.
And ups and downs in those relationships, working through the tough spots.
And it's not about elitism. There's some friendships that transcend commonality of purpose. There's some, we're not like we all have to be doing the same profession. We all have to be multimillionaires or some friendships, we have nothing in common, but like we've just known each other for a lot of years and we're not trying to impress each other. But I do think that the quality, as we're developing, we're growing, we help each other grow.
Yeah.
And then we grow more. And then one of us breaks away and grows a little bit more, brings that back to the others. And you end up with this thing that we have.
Yeah.
This thing that we have is unbelievable.
It is. Yeah.
And just being here, I'll just say during the wedding yesterday, there were a couple of moments that I was fighting back the tears. I saw you up there, Mark. Just remember, if you've been here 18 years on staff, well, I've known you for 18 years, and I've watched this guy adjust. When I first came into his life, I was a clumsy, my EQ was all over the place. I was like a ship without a rudder.
You were fiery though.
I was fiery.
The first talk I heard, he said fire like 100 times. Fire. And
I forgot what I was going to say. So it was just fire until another word came into my head. But you kept me around, man. And it's I remember watching you over the years. At one point when I came, I was so undeveloped and there was such a gap between the two of us. And you've continued to develop yourself. I developed myself. And then there was a moment at some point, maybe 10 years ago, where I'm like, man, I remember I got in the car. It sounds really, man, I don't know what this sounds like. I got in the car. I said, man, this guy's been a mentor of mine all these years. He acted like he learned something from me on this trip. And it was the greatest moment of like one of the greatest moments of my life where I'm like, this guy that I've looked up to all my life, now he's and you've always had that ability to not need to be the top guy in the room. Your ego has always been dialed into such a point that, and I've watched it. I've watched the way you've done that with Mark. You know, this is your church. You planted this, you know. Nobody will ever pay a price that you and Stephanie have paid, right? Not, Mark, you know that. We've talked, not even close.
Not even close.
Even though you've made a lot of investments, you just don't, there's not enough time for you to catch up on that. But yet, the way that you have valued people when that gap existed, and then the way that you've been willing to, I don't know, the humility that's needed to get to this level. I was going to chime in and
say the same thing, like just the humility.
Let it turn into a friendship.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
I mean, same moments that he and I have had, and it takes humility and integrity, and like there's a specialness about that because everybody wants to be significant, valuable, and important. But to elevate that difference maker component and that personal, I'm going to grow and become the best version of myself so I can add value to the world. Like I've seen you do that, and I've seen you both do that. And because we've gotten to that place too, where we get to mutually support each other in a lot of different things. But you touched on it earlier, and I think not only the affirmation, but the reason he gets to sit here at this table and we're on his podcast in his church building is because he's always been a giver.
Always been a giver. I agree with that.
One of my life verse or quotes is Zig Ziglar. He said, "You can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want."
Oh man,
that's so true.
And I think we get to sit when we consistently give, and he gave more than he was receiving early on. But when we consistently give, we get to be in that position of receiving where, well, I don't deserve this. I didn't earn this. I didn't create this, but we've given so much. I mean, it's sowing and reaping. When you give enough, it's going to keep coming back to you. And like you said, you gave to a lot of relationships that didn't come back. Well, we can't give without it coming back to us. We can't give good things to the world.
More of a return, you know, when you hit you hit gold, you strike gold, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of those relationships can be more than 500, you know, casual relationships.
Lester Summerall, we were talking about it. You know, I heard last time I heard him speak, he was 85 years old or 80, whatever he was, right before he died. It was just a year or two before he died, and he stood on the stage, frail, and he held up his hand. He said, "I've been around the world. I've met kings and presidents of so many countries. I've been with the dignitaries of the world." And he said, and he held up his hand, he goes, "And I can count on this hand the number of true friends I've had in life."
Wow.
And what you just said is so powerful, because if you do operate in that abundance for long enough, you've got to plant into hundreds of people. And be careful not to cancel them, because you never know who's going to be that person that is you're going to do life with someday. It's funny. I can't think of many times I've canceled anyone out of my life. I've been canceled.
Same as me. Yeah,
I just keep giving. If you want to be around, I'll keep giving. But you get to this point where I'm sitting there at this wedding and I'm fighting back the tears. I'm thinking, I knew when you and Stephanie started dating. And then we're engaged, and it was like that was the wedding of the year, man, on TBN. I mean, that was back in the day. It was a big deal. And then all of a sudden you're going to plant a church, and then you're pregnant, you know, and we see Parker born, and we see Pierce born, and now here Parker's getting married, and I'm feeling old, but I'm feeling blessed. And that's the reward of paying that price. I can say honestly, though, you know, you guys were working closer in proximity, so I'm sure you had some tension at times. I can't ever remember a time, and that's what I appreciate about our friendship. I can't ever remember a time being offended by you, or you. I don't want to get emotional, but you and Stephanie have been just the dearest friends. In fact, we even said, man, we need to find a way to invest more, because you don't get that. You just don't get that too much in life. You do. It's the best thing you can get.
Yeah. You know, like, for instance, just being at the wedding, one of the things that made it so fulfilling for me is to have you and Mark there. You know, to me, you drive 6 hours to come here and be a part of this. And speak for me so I don't have that pressure the next day. And Mark's part of it, and Emily and Katie and all that. So I think, when I look at it from my perspective, and Mark, you both know this story real well. I mean, my father passed away when I was 3 months old.
Mm-hmm.
So I always, was looking for affirmation. My mother gave me great affirmation, but you're always as a man looking for it from a man. And, I've tried to find it in my teachers, my coaches. And then when I got into ministry, mentor leaders and business leaders. And finally, I had some along the way, like Dr. Summerall mentored me from a distance. I got to go on international trips with him and some other stuff, and R.W. Shambach and some of the great generals and Pastor Rob Parsley and guys like that. And, but also there was a time in my life, as being a first generation pastor, a plant, with the kind of ministry we planted with no backing or anything but God, which is more than enough, hitting those low spots, wrestling with, and my mentors passed away, 2 of them, and so on. So it's like, man, who's going to mentor me? Who's going to be my spiritual father, that one to help me in my legacy? And then the Holy Spirit just finally got tired of me moaning and groaning, complaining to him, and said,
invest in others.
He said, become what you want to receive.
Mm.
And it just rocked me. And I'm like, what?
Yes.
And he said, you want a father? Be a father.
Yeah.
And that's when it just like a switch, wasn't it, Mark?
Yep.
It was like gave me a release.
Mm.
And then, because I've always been a mentor or elder brother, I always look, anybody can help. Older me, younger me, it doesn't care. It fills my tank if I can help somebody, advice, whatever, coaching or whatever. But man, that just flipped, and it changed our whole ministry, obviously, and relationships. And but the power of that, the reason I gave that backdrop, I think the power of it for me is watching you guys. I mean, we're doing something cool in all of our ministries. We're, a thriving church ministry. We planted churches locally and internationally and regionally. We've done things. But the cool thing is now I was an entrepreneur before I went into ministry, right? And God released me to do that again.
Yeah.
And then Mark, man, has built this international coaching company. He's just crushing it, but he's still here serving me on staff. He doesn't even receive a salary. He's like sewing back. And people early on would say, what are y'all doing? Well, you letting him, doesn't he have his own business? And people it took them a while to get it, but they didn't have the trust I had, right?
Yeah.
And so we're here, iron sharpening iron. And the thrill for me is my job's easy. All I got to do is affirm you guys, because I know how it feels when you're the one running, and nobody appreciates it, but they want something from you. But to have that pat on the back, that attaboy, you got this, or to protect you when someone attacks you, for me, that is just such a cool role in my life right now.
Yeah.
And then to watch your guys' kids become giants, it's just like, wow, I just sit back and gloat, really, to be honest with you.
I remember one time when so we had some people making a stake challenge against something that we had planted and had labored.
I remember that.
Years. And I remember they said, well, we need you to step down. We need you to step out. I remember telling you, I think I'm just going to vacate. And I remember you yelled at me on the phone. You said, do not vacate, and I'll never forget it. And I didn't. And that one.
And I told you I was going to get my vehicle and come. You said, let me do this. I said, no, I'm on my way. I'm heading out of my office now. And I was ready to go, man. I was ready.
When I look back,
turning point moment.
That one moment. And it goes back to this. I think about to give this some spiritual context. You look at Nazareth. And Nazareth rejected Jesus. And it's like, who could have known in that moment what that young man was going to become? Savior of the world, right? 10 or 20 years after the resurrection, Nazareth people were looking back going, we missed that one. And it's like, it's one of those things where you have to be careful who you reject. People are too quick to reject right now because you never know
so good
where that next Jesus is in your circle. That next person that's I'm not saying you and I are Jesus in his circle, but it paid off.
Yeah.
And now all of our lives are going vertical.
Yeah.
Look at what's happened in our lives. Synergy.
Oh, it's crazy. Do you guys what do you think about people's awareness? They're saying, I don't cancel people.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think people are really even aware that they cancel people?
Oof. No, no, I really don't. And because here's why, because our culture has made it justified, rationalized. If you don't get your way, then you just walk away. If you don't get what you want, if they don't do what you want, you don't get what you want. Our culture has made offense like a sport. Oh my goodness. And
it's everything.
It's
literally every single thing.
The phrase, "That's my truth." Don't even get me started, because we've created a culture where everybody gets their own.
They
truth.
should say, "That's my rules."
Yeah.
If you're going to love me or like me, this is the rules. If if you're going to be my friend, here's my rules, not my truth.
Yeah.
I even have, I look at it right now where, we're heading into the political season. I mean, there's nothing that divides us, at least here in America. I think in all societies, like politics, right? And I think about where we're at right now, and it's real easy when you get into, say, a political argument, or even if you're trying to avoid that, somebody trying to draw you into a political argument, it's easy for you to go, you know what? It's just not worth it. I'm gonna let this person just walk away, or but you realize that, if something is fighting against a major block of your friendships, you have to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Because you could end up accidentally losing someone.
Yeah.
Just because they have a little bit of a different view than you right now. You end up losing somebody, and then this should happen years later, and it didn't.
Yeah.
And I'm just keenly careful of that right now. Even to the point of just exercising more humility and giving people more grace to just be mad or to yell at me or whatever. And just be, hey, are you sure you want to break up? Are you sure you want to break up?
And not only looking at it from a personal friend aspect, but look at it from a business transaction. I mean, if you only have a business relationship to someone while they benefit you, and when they no longer benefit you, you move on or do whatever you do, that's a poor business decision.
Yeah.
Because that person might have exactly what you need a year from now or 5 years. So even in a practical sense, it could be a supervisor or employee or a business partner or an associate or something that you really needed them. And, you're so thankful they helped you get to the next level or to get what you needed. And then all of a sudden you just kind of blow them off and look to the next one. And, at my age, I've seen a lot of that. Being in mega ministries, being in large businesses like you guys, coaching some multimillionaires. You see those things happen in their lives, our lives, blah, blah, blah. And I've seen it always pays off to honor. To honor. And I think that's the component that's missing right now.
So glad you brought that word up. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to, it really pulls together the conversation, right? So if you're watching this or listening to this and you're like, I want those kind of relationships. I want decade long. I want the fruit. I want the trajectory to be going straight up. I think you have a couple of things we touched on, the abundance mindset of like, there's more than enough to give. There's more than enough for all of us to win. And I think you touched on it too, of like stepping back and identifying what are the relationships I'm going to fight for? What are the relationships are non-negotiable? I know God put these people in my life. Cancel is not an option, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to fight. I'm going to be there long term. And if you always have the mindset that we've both benefited from in his life, is I'm always going to give. But I'm going to help people achieve their dreams.
Yes.
And that's going to be the position I always take. I'm going to be what I want to have in my life. If we do that, we get to win. We get to have those relationships. So anybody got a closing thought on this conversation? Maybe, that's going to be hard to do in a closing thought as we're trying to wrap it up. But Pastor, why don't you just wrap us up here with maybe your biggest takeaway from just the fruit of long-term relationships?
Well, I think that we're kind of a testament of that, and others are. I think that we touched on it at the end. We may have to do a part 2 on this, but the whole glue is the honor piece. And I don't know, I could ask you guys, do you feel there was many times I honored you before you ever, really had an opportunity to honor me? And did you feel kind of honored? Did you, because to me, I felt like I honored you because I had a schedule, I had this and that, and you'd call or come or we'd visit or we'd talk, and then we'd take time together like you guys said, I'd take that time. Well, to me, if I take my time and just don't have to fix anything, just listen to you. And then sometimes I can help you. To me, that's a practical way to honor, is to be an ear, to be a confidant, to love, to lift up, and to always affirm and to encourage and to find the positive out of it. And I think that's a real critical component.
You know, and to answer your question about long-term relationships, that's perfect what you just said. You reap what you sow.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there was, and he's right, you know, when our friendship first began, I didn't have the knowledge of what a schedule was or the value of someone's time or I didn't understand, but I felt it. And I think if you want to develop long-term relationships, you have to invest in those,
which is honor.
It's honor. Yeah.
You can't give anything more valuable than your time.
No.
Nope.
Right.
Such a great talk.
Well, guys, this has been awesome. Yeah. And it's kind of easy for us. We're such great buds and all that. And it's an honor that they're here with me today. So I just trust that today you enjoyed this conversation with difference makers, because that's our goal. We're sharing our heart, taking our time, because we believe in you. We want to see you go to that next level. We want to see you be the difference maker where you are today, not thinking about it so much in the future. Have a vision, have a plan, but the key is being a difference maker today. So until next time, make a difference.